What's going on, my people? Welcome back to another episode of the Stop the Count podcast. In this episode, we will be talking about what seems to be a great weekend for boxing, and there is no UFC event this weekend. We will also be talking a little bit about the Liga MX finals. Now, this is going to be a weekend where all the good boxing cards are all across the pond. And first, we'll get into the top ranked card headlined by Luis Alberto El Venado Lopez versus Mick Conlan. First, I'll get into some prospects on the card that I will be looking forward to watching fight. The first being super lightweight prospect Pierceoleary. He'll be going up against a tough opponent in Aline Florian. The next prospect is someone already fighting as a co-main event in a WBC eliminator fight. That is Nickball. The 26-year-old undefeated featherweight is going up against fellow unbeaten featherweight Ladumo Lamati. A tough fight for Nick, and this is one of those fights I won't be breaking down, but it is a 50-50 fight. I feel anybody can win that fight. Now for the main event, Mick Conlan versus Luis Alberto El Venado Lopez. I'll get into Mick Conlan first. The two-time Olympian, having already placed third at one Olympics, it has already held the WBA interim super bantamweight title. Mick has a record of 18 wins, 1 loss, with 9 of those wins coming by knockout. In his lone loss was against Leighwood. He was, of course, up on the cards but was knocked out and fell out of the ring in the 12th round. That was the fight which Wood won knockout of the year for. Now, Mick has since gone on to have 2 straight wins. Now, Mick is a fighter who started off fighting orthodox but now primarily fights in a southpaw stance. Mick really likes to keep his distance and catch his opponents coming in. He usually leaves his hands down real low and throws those looping left hooks. Mick is very patient and has that silky defense. It doesn't always end the best for Mick as it leads to him taking some hard, unnecessary shots. It did seem as the stamina and staying off the ropes was a problem for Mick against Lee, as in the corner you could hear his trainer say over and over for Mick to stay off the ropes, and he just wasn't doing that. Now, it has been said mixed fights are boring or whatever, but that's just bullshit in my opinion. Now, getting into Luis Alberto El Venado Lopez. Venado has a record of 27 wins, 2 losses, with 15 wins coming by knockout. He won the IBF title in December by defeating former champion Josh Warrington by majority decision. His last loss being a split decision to former title challenger Ruben Villa. From then, he's been on a 10-fight win streak. Venado is a very wild, awkward fighter. Venado pressures the hell out of his opponents. Venado does at times lunge into his attacks while at range, and it's not the best thing for him going up against a counterpuncher like Mick. The great equalizer is the power. Venado is very strong. He is 100% not a boxer. He's as much as a brawler as anyone else. Ronaldo does get hit a lot as his defense is not the best, and he at times tires out heading into the later rounds. This is a fight I don't see going all the way, as they both have power. I do believe the power favors Venado, but besides that, Mick is almost superior at everything else. This is a very hard fight to pick, but I believe Venado will win as he does a good job pressuring his opponents on the ropes, and that's really where Mick struggled against Lee. So I would pick a Venado knockout victory. Now for the next card, also going on in the UK, it's headlined by another pair of great featherweights as Leighwood tries to regain his WBA title from Mauriciolara, who he just lost it to in February. First, I'll get into some fighters I want to see on the card, starting with a fighter I've mentioned, I believe, the most since the start of this project, and that is Campbellhatton. Yes, he's fighting again in his 3rd fight in the same amount of months. This is really gaining him great in-ring experience. The next would be Jackcatterall. He's back in the ring after over a year layoff after what many, including myself, think was one of the most controversial robberies last year in his loss against Josh Taylor. And that led to Josh really stalling, relinquishing most of his titles just to not fight Jack. And I just want to see how he is after that loss, if he still has that same love for the sport. Now, I'll get into the main event, Mauriciolara versus leighwood 2. First, I'll get into Mauriciolara. Lara has a record of 26 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw, with 19 wins coming by knockout, and the draw coming from the latest Josh Wellington fight after it was stopped due to an accidental head clash, causing a cut over Lara's eye. His losses coming earlier in his career in Mexico, won by knockout in the first round, and a split decision loss in his professional debut. Now, getting into Lara's style a little bit, he is a very hard puncher. In his last 16 fights, he has 13 wins coming by knockout. He's always looking to land that left hook, either to the head or the body. He does at times get a little too crazy and just starts throwing bombs, really leaving himself exposed. And that always leads to him smothering himself at times. He does a good job of mixing up his attack, though. Now, in their last fight, it was quite obvious Lara was feeling Lee's power. The straight shots are what do the most damage to Lara, in my opinion, as he throws so many hooks. Now, getting into leighwood, he has a record of 26 wins, 3 losses, with 16 wins coming by knockout. His last fight was against Lara, of course, and that is where he lost his title as his corner threw the towel in. I do believe it was the right decision. He has been knocked out once before, almost 9 years ago, and he has also lost a decision. Lee has been hurt in the first round and dropped multiple times, so a good start is going to be very important for Lee in this fight. I'd say Wood's offense is his best defense. There's too many times in his fights where Lee loses concentration and leaves his chin high and out there. There's times where Lee's first instinct is to pull his head back, and that gets him in trouble. One thing Lee does have is sneaky power. That's something hardly anyone mentions when they bring up leighwood. When Lee is patient, that is when he's at his best. However, when he's rushing himself, he starts to get really sloppy. Lee is a warrior. He's not afraid to take damage to also give it out. In fights where Lee uses his height and reach advantage to box, I don't think there's many featherweights that could beat him. Do I think he'll do that in this fight? No. The first shot he takes, he's going to want to answer it right away, and that's not a fight where he wants to be in, especially with Lara. Now, for my prediction, I'm certain, 100% certain, this fight will not go the full distance. Someone will get stopped, and I believe that someone will be leighwood. Lara is the harder puncher, and I'm certain leighwood will feel it more in this fight. Also, alexisrocha is fighting this weekend as well. I don't believe I will be watching this fight or the card, as I have been really let down by goldenboy and their recent matchmaking. So I am a very big fan of alexisrocha. I just don't care to see the fight. I would prefer to see Alexis sign with someone like Showtime, PBC, or even Matchroom, just not goldenboy. Now, for the Liga MX finals, the first leg is being played in Monterrey at Tigres Stadium. Now, in the regular phase of this tournament, Chivas was able to beat Achima Ruiz led Tigres 2-1 at the Volcan. Tigres were also without their star striker, Andre Pierre Guignac. Now, for the Liga MX finals, the first leg is being played in Monterrey at Tigres Stadium. Now, in the regular phase, Chivas was able to beat Achima Ruiz led Tigres 2-1 at the Volcan. In that game, Tigres was without a pair of their star players, the first being Andre Pierre Guignac, who was out due to injury, and star defender Igor Lifnovsky, who was out due to a red card. Chivas also had a very important absence as they were without Alexis Vega. And yes, he has not played the best, but he's like a Gignac. The defense is always going to have to keep an eye on him. Now, I'm also not too sure if Stitch Angulo will play this game. Tigres was really able to dominate the regular phase game against Chivas, especially in the second half. This is not going to be an easy game for either teams, and Tigres will have to come out attacking. Not like their last game where they played defense the whole time, really. but Tigres' attack is good enough to only have attacking 4 players and still be very dangerous while the rest are defending. Now, if I were Panovic, I'd go with a game plan that allows our fullbacks to be more aggressive as Tigres is getting older and we have to take advantage of that. I'd probably say a 5 at the back with those 2 wide fullbacks, just like this past game against America. This is a final where Alexis Vega and Ocho Guzman have to make their presence felt if they want Chivas to be champions. Now, for who I have winning this game, I believe this game will be a 2-1 victory for Chivas, making the second leg in Guadalajara very important. Now, for some real quick soccer news, Juventus has been deducted 10 points, and that currently means that AC Milan sneak into Champions League places. These next 2 games are going to be very, very crucial for Milan to hopefully keep those places. Thank you for staying until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Twitter at StopTheCount10. See you guys later on this week as we talk about the Liga MX finals first leg and my prediction for what will happen in the second leg. See you then.